Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast. I'm Jessie Lezak, fractional CMO at BDEX, along with founder and CEO of BDEX, David Finkelstein. How's it going, David?
Hey, Jesse. It's going well. Dodged a hurricane bullet this week, so that's good.
Yes.
Didn't need another one of those.
Yes, especially since you're in Sanibel and it wasn't a good thing last year. So I'm really glad that you were able to dodge that.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. How was it in the rest of the state? I haven't even watched the news. Has it been okay?
Yeah, I think they got hit really hard up north, in northwestern Florida. So my heart goes out to them. I know what they're feeling, since having been through it last year. But we got spared this year, so glad for that. But I heard there were, everybody evacuated as they were told to. So far there's no deaths, so that's really good.
Oh, that's awesome.
There'll be a lot of damage and a lot of work to rebuild, just like we're going through. And so good luck to them.
Oh, good. Well, sending my heart out there. Alessandra is our guest today, and we are really lucky to welcome her on. She's the founder and CEO of Influur. It's Alessandra Angelina. I'm sorry, I said Angelina, but it's Angelini, and you will see here in just a moment when I pull her in. Welcome to the show, Alessandra.
Hey, Jesse, David, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited to be in this podcast today.
Awesome, Alessandra. It's great to have you here. We really appreciate you joining us, and would love to hear more about you and your company. So why don't you kick us off with an introduction, a little bit of background about you and what led you to start Influur, and a little bit about what your company does.
Yes, let's do it. So basically, we built Influur more than, I would say, 2.5 or 3 years ago. Basically, it was born out of the necessity that all of my co-founders face on if you want to get connected with an influencer, how do you start? It was really hard for us. Personally, for me, I was working at CNN, and one night we had to interview an influencer, and nobody in the whole building in the headquarters at CNN in Atlanta, Georgia, was able to connect with this influencer. And basically, the problem comes on a workforce that it's just highly connected, and if you are not in that hub of connections, it's impossible for you to work with that influencer. So that's what we're solving. We're 4 female founders from Latin America, and basically what the platform does is that we connect the fastest way brands with influencers in 11 countries, 10 of them in Latin America and 1 of them being the United States. And 2 years passed by since we last launched Influur in the Apple Store. And today we have the privilege of working with Fortune 500 companies like Warner Music, Subway, Uber Eats, and so many other ones. And with influencers that are, early starting out to mid-tier influencers, big influencers, and celebrities like a Sofia Vergara, for example. So yeah, really excited about what we're doing in the creator economy space and trying to help brands and influencers to just get connected as easiest as possible. It's what we do.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. That's great. And you said 2 years into the business, so that's amazing. I'd love to sort of dig a little deeper. Let's talk about, so one of the topics that we had and we wanted to talk about was making data-based decisions as a CEO, especially in a startup. So let's talk about that. I mean, obviously 2 years into your venture here, I think that, it'd be interesting to see how data plays a role into making decisions with your business, growing your business.
Yeah, David, that's a great point, because in a startup, I think the most difficult part of a startup is that every day is different, and every day you're facing a new challenge. Like, you didn't know that this is a new challenge, you need to face it and you need to solve it. And I think what happens there is that if you don't have data handy, it can become a really emotional problem depending on if you're solving 10 problems that day specifically, or if you're solving one. But if you're solving 10 problems that specific date, you might see a problem bigger than what it actually is. And that happened a lot on Influur in the early days, where, even like payments or features, like you would think that everybody's facing this problem and we need to fix it. And then you start looking at the data and it's like, okay, less than 1% of your users are actually facing that problem. And whenever we started to implement that data, that's when we became a very data-driven company. And if you're facing an issue in the company, we have this culture that you need to come back with data and proofs on what happened and what the solution should be. So I consider right now we have a pretty good culture on data, but if you don't have that culture, then you will be building stuff that not necessarily the majority of your users need. And that's when you waste money, when you waste time, you waste pretty much everything. So that's how we do it. And it's very funny, very interesting.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, you could really get your company sort of sidetracked, right? And get yourself in a position where you're spending a lot of time on something that isn't necessarily as important as you think it is, right? Because someone comes to you and says, hey, there's a problem, right? And now all of a sudden everybody's trying to fix that problem. But you could find out very easily with looking at some data, right? That might show that only this person or only this client is having the problem. Nobody else is having the problem. So maybe it's really a problem on their end.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you're spending all this time and, that costs a company, especially a startup, when you have limited resources, a lot of time and a lot of money.
Yeah, and I remember, David, I remember one case specifically. We expanded to Latin America really fast, right? Because we work with campaigns that are really big, and whenever you do a campaign, you might be working with influencers across, the United States, Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, and even Brazil at the same time. Meaning that your platform should be able to get payments and payouts in these countries. It seems easy to do, but it's harder than what it sounds, right? Because the technology, you need to have a really robust technology in order to do so. So I remember specifically, I think there were like 2-3 influencers that needed a payout in Ecuador, I think it was, and we were not supporting payouts in Ecuador. And then I remember the whole team was like, we need to build this to, do the payouts for Ecuador. And then we saw that it was just an emotional problem. We could just solve that by doing a quick PayPal outside of the app while we build the future internally, right? So those are the little things that I laugh right now, but at that time it's very frustrating because the person that is experiencing the problem, they believe that the world is ending because they don't have access to data. And when you have access to data, that's when you understand that the world is not ending, that this is fine, and it's less than 1% of your users that are facing that problem.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And so, we see that all the time, and this may segue a little bit into sort of the next topic because we see that a lot of time being in the ad tech business ourselves. We're often running campaigns for, all these different companies, and you have a situation where one is having a problem and the salesperson is saying, hey, this is a problem. And we're all trying to say, okay, well, is this really a problem? Show us the data. So we're a data company, right? So everything we do is data centric, and we track data on everything. And so we can pretty quickly come back and see a report of some sort that will say, hey, it looks like this problem is isolated to this one client or this one platform or something like that, and help us, prevent ourselves from spending too much time on a problem that is isolated, not necessarily a company-wide problem.
Yep.
Definitely.
Super important. So with that said, so we have this topic here, right? Analyzing advertising data. And so talk to us about how this applies in your business, in the influencer marketing business.
This is one of the most important aspects because whenever I like to compare always influencer marketing with paid media, right? On paid media, let's say that you go on Instagram or Facebook ads and you do an advertising, right? You change that advertising so much. If it's even like the content, who are you reaching, you start optimizing that advertising, right? To really understand which are going to be the specific things that you are going to reach out to that actually resonates with your product, your audience, and that eventually goes through the funnel and gets converted, right? A person in marketing really tries to optimize this channel so much to really get that, and the way that you optimize that is with data. What happens in influencer marketing, I think in paid media, it's very data driven at this time. But with influencer marketing, you pay an influencer, you didn't track anything, then our brands come back to us and they say, oh, the influencer didn't work. And then whenever you come back and you really understand that case study, they didn't see the data even at the beginning of using that influencer. So to give you an example on how we use data in our business to help brands choose the best influencers is the following, right? Brands in the platform, they upload a job opportunity because we are a jobs marketplace. They upload a job opportunity. Let's say that you're Coca-Cola. You upload your job opportunity, influencers apply to it. We have a best matching tool that combines the data of, what do you need from that advertising and what does the influencer has in their audience. So for example, if you're looking influencers with an audience in Ohio because you are a restaurant in Ohio, then we will be matching the influencer first audience demographics to be Ohio. And that will be your first match, right? And then if it's not Ohio, we will get the nearest city around it. But that's one of the examples that you need to use data at the beginning, right? To choose the right influencer for your business. And then at the end, the way that we use it and the way that that we try most of the companies to use it is that after the campaign is live, you have a bunch of metrics. David, you have, awareness, impressions, and UGC content, views. You have so many points of data. And then after you do a campaign, let's say with 10 influencers, this is the same going back to the paid media, to that advertising that you just did on Facebook, right? You do one campaign, you improve on it. Same with influencer marketing. You do one campaign with 10 influencers, you optimize. How do you optimize? You take a look at the data and you keep working with the top number 1%, right? You can work with the two best performers for a long period of time. So what we recommend a lot to our clients is that you need to start looking at the data pretty early on when you want to start a campaign. And then at the end of the campaign, this is like a sample size, right? From the sample size, and you're going to keep working with the two influencers that got the most amazing results, because those are the two influencers that the advertising resonate the most with their audience. And those are the ones that you want to keep working with for a long time. So that's a little bit on how we handle data at the company. And right now we're shifting from the mobile app to the web app. So data, our marketers and CMOs, they can see data, on a big screen, and they can make more data-driven decisions.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Are there,
really.
sorry, I was just going to ask, are there certain social platforms that you guys focus on in particular?
Yes. So our top platform is TikTok, followed by Instagram and then YouTube. However, we have had a few jobs on Twitch, on Snapchat, but it's not like the core of the business. TikTok, I think it's number one right now.
Interesting. So tell me about what kind of, if I'm an advertiser and I'm going in your platform and I want to choose to run a campaign with some influencers, what kind of data am I looking at? What am I able to see in your platform?
Yeah, so we try to digest it as much as possible for our brands, David. So what you're gonna see is like audience demographic. You're gonna see the location of the influencer. You're gonna see engagement rates, followers by each of the social media platforms. For us, there are two really important metrics. So on our platform, not every influencer can join. We have like a vetted system, and the vetted system is a combination on followers and engagement rate. An engagement rate is just a combination of how many followers you have with likes, comments, and posts within your platform, to really understand that you don't have fake followers. So those are the two most important ones. And then of course, the others that I mentioned, audience analytics. So it's not only, David, about how does the influencer looks like, but also how does your audience looks like. And what happens a lot is, like, for example, female influencers in fitness, they have a lot of male audience, right? You are hiring a female figure to actually get to the audience of men, right? So those we try to separate both data to really make sure that you're getting the audience that you need more than the influencer that you need. The influencer is of course super important, but the most important is how does that audience looks like.
That's interesting. Are you guys able to tie it back to revenue at all?
We're trying to do that. I think it's hard for us because working with Fortune 500 companies,
Yeah.
they sell in, whenever they launch a new product, they sell in Sephora, Ulta, and then Amazon and their own website, and they sell through many different channels. I think what we try to do is we give an influencer a separate link, right? That's what most of the brands do to actually track what happens there. But it's hard with Fortune 500 companies. It will be easier to do it only, for example, with Shopify, because that's only one integration. But I think whenever you have different sales channels, it gets pretty hard.
I bet.
Yeah, see, I can see that as being the challenge, right? And being able to understand not just, the reach of the audience, but, what's actually happening after that fact, right? And
Yeah.
so are the consumers, are the users going and making purchases and finding ways to track that back? That would be super powerful.
Yeah, so I think the brands that we work with, they have this very figured out because with the links that they provide to the influencer, they can really track that with their own systems. So what we do with them is that they share with us the data to really understand what was the impact here. It was only an awareness impact, or this was mostly a conversions impact. And whenever you're doing a campaign, they are very very specific on what's the goal for this campaign, right? Either you want to do a lot of awareness because you're launching a new city and nobody knows you, or you just want to convert because everybody knows you and you're just launching a new product, right?
Interesting. Well, shall we transition into our third topic here?
Absolutely.
It is privacy, transparency, accuracy, and security as a top priority when it comes to technology. So, could you kick us off on this one, Alessandra?
Yes, this is a huge topic for us. If I don't know if you have done influencer marketing, the way that people knows how to do it, which is you DM an influencer, they respond you back, maybe you go on email or WhatsApp, and then you pay them through PayPal, Sale, Cash App, whatever it is, right? We are working on a system that is highly fragmented, that you use a single platform to do different tasks. Then in highly fragmented industry, it happens that you don't have a lot of transparency and security, right? In our industry, what happens is that the influencer receives, sometimes they receive like 40% of the deal because it went from one agency to another agency, and then they didn't even know how much actually the brand had as a budget, right? So influencers that join Influur, the first thing of why they join Influur is because of the price transparency that we provide to the industry. Whenever a brand posts a job opportunity of $100, they receive on their wallet $100. So in terms of security, in a sense of and transparency, in a sense of payments, is huge for us, and then that's one of the most value added things that we give to the industry. And the second part is security on, is this person really you? Like, are you the influencer that you are telling me that you are, right? Which is really important. And we have developed our own internal system to make sure that the influencer is the influencer, and they're telling the truth, and then only the manager that is actually the manager of the influencer have access to their profiles and so forth. So it's huge. I think privacy, security, and transparency is one of the core values of the product, because that's how we're solving a huge issue in the creator economy, basically.
Yeah, that's super important. I mean, obviously, especially, when you're looking at, you're sort of, in a sector of the advertising business, right? I mean, there's, big brands that are paying you to advertise and to reach consumers. and they want to know that they're reaching real people, and they want to know that they're doing it through a legitimate channel. We see this all the time in our end of the ad tech business, where there's bots and click farms and all these things that you got to deal with when you're dealing with advertisers. It'll be interesting to see, and I'd love to get your feedback on this.
Yeah.
Where you see potential benefits and or risks when it comes to AI, because I know that there's already been a couple of created AI influencers, and I'm really interested to see your take on how that may affect your industry going forward.
Yeah, I don't see it as a huge risk having, an AI as an influencer. I see it most because we're actually working on this right now. We're building an AI tool basically for image recognition. What happens in the industry, David, is that brands more and more, they want an influencer that is very specific, right? So if you are launching a product for acne, you are looking for influencers that have acne, right? And it's very tough for you to find influencers with acne without AI. You need to have image recognition, or something that can really understand if that influencer has talked about acne before, so you really understand and you're not losing your time there. And it's not only with acne, it can be with anything related with the product that you're launching. And also the diversity issue, right? A lot of brands are trying to get more and more into diversity whenever it comes to advertising campaigns. You want to have a Latino and an Asian, an American, all colors, like pretty much everything. You want to have everything in a campaign. So AI will help a lot, but we're very aware that it can lead a little bit to discrimination, right? Like you're choosing one over the other one. It's a very fine line on applying AI to help you run campaigns faster, which is our most, like, the value prop that we have for our brands, versus now that we are going to be able to choose exactly how you want and which type of person you want for that campaign and which one you want to avoid, right? It gets pretty tough. So that's, I think, the risks that we're seeing mostly with AI. We haven't seen much of a risk with the digital influencers, mostly because we don't see brands as convinced, because they don't have a huge community. They don't have that community of, I think AI hasn't got there yet, of creating a very strong community of somebody that doesn't exist, like, period. Like that AI can't go to the event right now of the latest Selena Gomez launch for Rare Beauty, right? Like, you need to have people are more and more looking for organic things, and that's why TikTok is where it is right now, because it's very organic. You create a very strong community because it's very, very real. And I'm not sure if AI will get to that point, but I think, yeah, the risk where I see it the most is in discrimination, actually using AI with influencer marketing.
That's interesting. I hadn't even thought of that. So that's
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough topic, and we help our brands a lot and even help them. It's still never enough, right? It's still like, and I think brands are facing this huge thing on, you're out there and everybody wants you to be super diversified and having all type of faces and all type of bodies. And it's hard, and sometimes they don't do a great job only because the audience think that they're not doing a great job. And that happens even with us, David, in the platform. We have around 15,000 users, and we have users that tell us, oh, I'm not part of Influur because there are not enough of X community. And I'm like, the way that I receive that, it's like, I get it, but I'm still a startup where, I'm trying to grow an audience, right? Like, I'm trying to grow my users. It's not like I want to avoid you. So it's hard. I think it's a hard topic for everybody in the advertising industry.
I think it's commendable that you're trying and you're making it, a point to really focus on.
Yeah, and I think we're trying just to get better with campaigns that are diversified on anything that you want to show in the outside world. But we can see, and that's had happened with many influencer marketing campaigns where, influencers go to TikTok saying, I went into this trip with X brand and we were the only ones on X, um, type of faces or type of body, whatever. And yeah, it's really sad. Everybody's trying to do a good job there.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting.
It's a hard.
Yeah. I want to change the topic a little bit just because the earlier you talked about, and this was early on in our conversation, you talked about using data and the importance to use data as a business, especially as a startup, and making decisions. And can you, I think for our listeners, there's going to be, a percentage of startups in there. And I would love for you to share some of what you felt, what was some of the most important data for you to track about your business, going from startup to 2 years, right? You're 2 years old now. So I think that there's probably been a lot of learnings in that period of time.
Yes.
And I think that would be really valuable for our listeners to hear.
Yeah, it's so funny that you're asking that question because we have an Excel spreadsheet that we call in Spanish tacometro, and it's like this thing in the car that tells you like where you are in everything.
Yep.
And we build that really really on because one of our advisors said you need to keep to to track at least the basic KPIs, basic stuff for your business, right? And I think that today we say that tachometro, if we want to sell it, like it's worth a lot of money because we have put so much time on that spreadsheet, and everybody knows that that's like the central data points of the general aspect of the business. And in that Excel, we track, it's been tracked on a month to month basis, right? Since we started, and we track every single part of the business from, TPV growth, revenue, acquisition, retention, how many, for example, of the influencers that joined this month actually got a job, and how many of the past influencers got a job. So we try to make it very simple for everybody in the company to really understand what's going on. We track how many transactions between different type of industries, and which are the industries that are driven the most amount of transactions. So for example, for us, that's music. Music drives the majority of the transactions in the app. You know that's what you should be doubling down, right? So I think for us, it was really important to see acquisition and retention metrics really, really on, understand who you need to acquire and what's that type of profile of user, and then that's a user that you should be retaining if they come back, right? You create that type of persona. So I think acquisition and retention was crucial for the business. And then another metric that we started to see is revenue streams, right? Like in terms of data, how much of each of the features that you're building add up to the revenue streams. And I think this is really helpful, David, for tech and product teams, because sometimes whenever they build products, they don't know the impact that the products that they're building actually have for the business. So it's really nice whenever they're building. This just happened this month. They built something amazing for the wallet, and our revenue increased so much in August, right? Those are the type of data that, as a CEO, I love for my teams to have handy, because they can understand how effective they are being with their times, and maybe not effective, right? Like in this case, it's effective. So yeah, we built this spreadsheet. Works a lot for us. I recommend so much, David, whenever somebody's starting something, just start with keeping track of the most important details, and tracking that on a monthly basis, because it's the same. You get emotional about, oh, me, I grew up a lot this month, and it's like, actually, like, how much actually did you grow on TPV and revenue, right? Like, it was like 1%, and that it's a lot to you, or it's actually like 30-50% month over month growth. So yeah, that's a trick that we had pretty early on in on Infra, and it worked so much. And it's still the same one. I think that we will develop in it like a very nice dashboard, but for now, it's still alive in the Google Drive.
Love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that's awesome. Super important. I agree. Yeah, my partner and I in our previous business, we had a spreadsheet which we called the big ass spreadsheet, which which just got bigger and bigger and bigger because we just started tracking more and more and more. You
Yeah,
know, with a
that's
lot more
another thing. We
detail.
try whenever it starts to get super big, we go again and start like to cut it off with the most important metrics,
Mhm.
because what starts to happen is like, oh, okay, marketing wants to use this, and like everybody wants to use this, and it's like, no, 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 this is company, this is a company tracker, this is not a marketing dashboard, or a finance dashboard. So we try as much as possible. And it's funny because I use this and I just duplicate it always that I want to make few calculations. I'm an Excel freak. I love to do calculations to understand like what are the things that are affecting the most the company. And and yeah, I just duplicate it so I don't bother other people, and I just try to change it there.
Well, I'm kind of curious, going off of David's question. He was asking you what's the most important data that you have. Like, what do you feel like there's any data like you wish you had? Like, what's missing in your audience and in your revenue and anything really?
I think getting used to cohort retention, it's something that we started using pretty much this year. It was not something that was there very early on in the moments of Influur. Right now, it's part of our, core business DNA, how many users you acquire, how many users you retain. But pretty early on, I think that whenever you are raising capital, or, you're talking with funds and everybody, they're seeing your growth on revenue and TPV, but that not necessarily mean that you have a great product that retains people, right? Because every month you can be acquiring more and that's it, but then great products are able to retain users for a long period of time. So I think for sure, retention data was important for me. Um, what else? Also, whenever if there is people seeing this podcast and they're building marketplaces, right? There is a very important metric, which is your average ticket, right? And the average ticket is basically the average of a transaction. And we started seeing this on a very general basic of what's our average ticket, and we didn't digest this into type of businesses or industries. And that's really important, because if you separate the industry, then you can really understand, okay, what's the biggest average ticket depending on your industry. That's something that we didn't do early on, and now it's like something that helps us a lot whenever we want to understand what we should be doubling down or not. And so that's another one. I'm trying to think a third one, but I think those are the two ones that I wish I learned at the very beginning of Influur.
Yeah, those are really, really good.
Absolutely. Well, we're getting toward the end, so let's make sure we ask you about your tech stack. What are some of your favorite tools? I know you mentioned Google Drive, so G Suite must be on the list, but what are some of your other favorite tools that you and your team are using?
Okay, so sometimes I use tools that not necessarily a lot of people use in the company. So tech stack in general, I think it's pretty basic on a sense of Google Drive, Slack, Notion. I'm personally right now obsessed with Superhuman, with all the integrations that you can do with the software, and it's just helped me as a CEO to run just faster. I think for my tech team, I know that we will be touching tech stack, so I actually asked them, "What's your favorite thing on your?" Because I have never asked them, "What's your favorite thing?" And to my technical team, and I actually have it here. Write it down. And they told all of them and told me the GitHub Actions for CI/CD pipelines, which is the automated developments for us. So it's basically sending code, submitting the code, and the code is already like submitted in the app as soon as possible. And of course, we just push them so much at releasing code really, really, really fast. So I think that's why they chose this as their favorite stack. But yeah, I think we don't have anything that it's pretty outside of the normal. I think it's, yeah, Google Drive, Slack, Notion. I personally use Superhuman, love it. And then my tech team, they have all their gigs that they use in their everyday basis.
Oh, that's so cool. Let me make sure. I was trying to type up. We try to tag the companies that you mentioned in the comments, so I was typing them up. Those are good ones. I didn't catch the. So you said your tech team uses code. Is that what it's called?
No,
GitHub.
It's just code. It's not an actual app.
No, it's GitHub. No, it's
GitHub. Okay.
yeah, GitHub to submit the code to the app as soon
Gotcha.
as possible, as fast as possible. So yeah, they love that. But I'm personally a little bit obsessed with Superhuman. I think it's a great tech tool.
Very cool. Actually, haven't heard of
What's,
Superhuman.
I'm curious. What's yours? What's your favorite?
We've never had that flipped around on us, David.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, we rely on GitHub actually also for code, but just I'd say for me and on a personal day-to-day basis, Slack is what I use to communicate with our team, constantly. I'd say that's one of the biggest ones for me on a day-to-day basis. And I use a tool now. What the heck is it called? Let me look at, and it's called Vidyo, Vidyo. So this is the tool that I'm using now that we use to now edit down these podcasts into shorter clips. And so it's actually a really convenient tool. It'll take this entire, roughly 45 minutes of conversation that we have, and it'll cut it down into about 15 clips. And it automatically puts in the subtitles as well. And so that makes it easy for you. You can then tweak the clips. The clips aren't always perfect. So you have to go in and tweak them a little bit, but it's a pretty helpful tool, I think, for editing video, which I recently found and found pretty handy as well. But yeah, I mean, besides that, the usual, Zoom and stuff like that. But I definitely would say that on a daily basis, I'm in Slack a lot.
Yes, Slack is a good one.
And Jira, I should say also, because we use Jira for all of our ticketing. So manages all of our technical tickets and support tickets and things like that too.
Yep. What about you?
What was that, Alessandra?
What about you?
Oh, I was going to say, I'll just give StreamYard a quick plug because that's what I use for all these live streams. And it's a great tool. It allows me to do a lot of production very easily. So yeah, I'm a big StreamYard fan.
I think there is a software that I love. I don't know if you have used it, Miro or Miro. I don't know how.
I've never used it. Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah, Miro. Yeah.
It's really great. Like everybody in the company uses whenever they are like, mostly for digital teams that they need to brainstorm together. And it's like a mini Figma, very user friendly, to just like add like maybe like workflows or mini dashboards or like whatever you need to show other teams. I think that works great. Figma, I love it. I'm a product person, so I always go and start seeing what the product team is doing. But yeah, I think we named the top companies for management. So
awesome.
Very cool. Well, we're just about out of time. So maybe one of our post-topic questions, Alessandra, if you could go back to when you first came into, or you first founded this company, what is the number one piece of advice you would give yourself then?
I would say trust yourself more. Something that happened a lot to us as first-time founders is that you believe that what VCs or other founders are telling you is actually the truth. And then it had happened to us so many times that actually what you were thinking at the really beginning was the right thing and was the right way to think it about a problem or about like anything that you are doing in regards of, fundraising, product development, marketing, many different stuff. I would say trust more yourself. I think we're always trying to learn from others and if if that startup grew that way, I'm gonna do it the same. And we are just trying to look for heroes. And I think most of the founders, they don't realize that they are their own heroes. They already have the courage to do this. So we need to trust ourselves a little bit more rather than just doing whatever they said that you need to do. It's really, really important. Trust yourself.
That's great advice. Don't you think, David?
100%. Yeah, I can't even tell you how many times, I've heard people, and I think every startup founder has heard people tell them that they'll, whatever their idea is, something's wrong with it, or it's bad, or it's not going to work, or you should do it this way. Somebody else trying to tell you how to do it. But these are people that are coming from the outside and they're not doing it, right? You're the
Yep.
one with the experience and the understanding, and they've done all the research and figured it all out. And so you have to trust your gut and realize that these other people are just trying to influence you for whatever the reason.
Yep.
And it's not necessarily because they're doing it from their, because
Yep.
they have more experience than you.
Mhm.
You're the one that's on the front lines.
Yeah. And something really important with this point is that you need to make sure that this doesn't affect culture, because if you have the type of culture where the leaders of the team or people in the team, they don't believe themselves, they're always looking for that outsider knowledge, outsider person that will tell you how to do it. It affects a lot the culture, because then nobody trusts themselves, and then everybody needs to get outside help. I think that we're becoming more and more a team that we trust ourselves. If we believe this is the right thing to do, we will do it. And we're working more as a team to be sure that we feel fine ourselves, and then maybe we can ask somebody else. But it can really affect culture. So I think empowering teams to understand that whatever they're going to be doing, it's going to be fine. And if it's not fine, you don't do that again. You just double down whatever works. That's fine too, right? But trusting yourself, and for the team to trust themselves, it's really, really important to have a strong culture in the company.
Perfect. I think that's a perfect way to close out. It's to say, trust yourself.
Trust yourself. Yes. I love that. That's a great episode. Well, I think that's pretty much wraps us up. And in closing, Alessandra, where can the listeners find you?
So they can find me mostly on Instagram and LinkedIn. So on Instagram, I'm Alessandra _ Angelini. So it's basically my name _ Angelini. And then on LinkedIn, I'm Alessandra Angelini Sobrero. But I think you can find me with Alessandra Angelini Influur, and I'm going to be there.
That's really awesome. This is a great discussion. I really feel like the two of you could probably have a very interesting discussion about being young founders, because David had a company, as he mentioned, a long time ago as well. And I remember hearing some of his stories about VCs early on. So this is really interesting. You're doing some really great things, Alessandra. And real quick plug before we go, let's make sure. And if you haven't heard of OmniIQ, click or scan the QR code here if you're watching, or go to bdex.com and click try for free. OmniIQ, it's really awesome. You can just upload a list of your first party data and then get data on your data. And in addition to that, you can build an audience that looks like your best audience. And it's not a lookalike audience, because it's pulling data from more than just one place. But David, what else would you want to add on OmniIQ?
No, you said it. You said it perfect. And it's all about using understanding your customers and using that information to build extended audiences of people to reach, and then activating that across anywhere on the ad tech ecosystem. So
that's pretty awesome. Yeah, seeing lists getting uploaded all the time, so there's a lot going on, and we would love to hear from our listeners. You can reach us at info@bdex.com. Let us know what you think about the show. Share your qualitative data with us so we can make it better for you. And thanks again, Alessandra.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.